My name is John. I've been married to Emma for almost 12 years, and together we have an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. We live a comfortable life, even if it isn't luxurious. Our home is pleasant, and we own 2 nice cars. Emma has a wardrobe full of lovely clothes, and Lily has plenty of toys to keep her happy. I work hard to provide for my family, but lately, I've been questioning if I'm really the ideal husband. My job can be quite demanding, and I admit that sometimes I come home in a sour mood. I try not to let it affect my family, but it's not always easy. Despite my efforts, something feels off between Emma and me. There's a distance that's been growing, a shadow over our relationship that I can't quite pinpoint. Emma has been acting differently. She's become distant, finding fault with me over the smallest things. It's unlike her, and it's starting to wear thin. I've tried asking her if something's bothering her, but she just brushes it off, blaming fatigue or a rough day. I hoped giving her space would help, but her detached demeanor is grating on my nerves. One evening, after a particularly tough day at work, I tried to lighten the mood at home. I brought Emma a dozen roses, hoping to surprise her and kickstart a romantic evening. I walked into the house, the scent of flowers filling the air, and handed her the bouquet. "These are for you, Emma," I said, smiling. She looked at the roses, her expression unreadable. "Thanks, John," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "They're beautiful." Her words were polite, but there was no warmth behind them. It felt like she was going through the motions, and my heart sank. I had hoped for a different reaction. Maybe a smile or a hug, something to show she appreciated the gesture. That night, I tried to initiate intimacy, but Emma turned away, claiming she was too tired. "Not tonight, John. I have a headache," she said, pulling the covers up to her chin. I sighed, frustration gnawing at me. "Emma, it's been weeks. We need to talk about this." She didn't respond, and within minutes her breathing became slow and steady, indicating she had fallen asleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling more alone than ever. The next morning, I tried to bring up the topic over breakfast. "Emma, I think we need to discuss what's going on between us," I said, my voice gentle but firm. She looked up from her coffee, her eyes weary. "John, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm just tired. Work has been stressful." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I get that, Emma, but it feels like you're shutting me out. We used to be so close, and now it's like there's this wall between us." She sighed, pulling her hand away. "I don't mean to shut you out. I don't know. Maybe I need some time to figure things out." I nodded, though her words did little to ease my worry. "All right, but please, let's try to work through this together. I miss you, Emma." Days turned into weeks, and the pattern continued. My attempts to be romantic and spontaneous were met with indifference. I'd come home with small gifts or suggest a night out, but Emma always had an excuse. The intimacy that once came so naturally felt forced, and the love we shared seemed to be slipping through our fingers. One particularly rough evening, I decided to confront her again. "Emma, we can't go on like this," I said, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. "I feel like I'm losing you." She looked up from her book, her eyes tired and sad. "I know, John. I'm sorry. I've been distant, and I don't know how to fix it." I walked over and sat beside her on the bed. "We need to communicate, Emma. Tell me what's going on in your head. Let's figure this out together." She put the book down and took a deep breath. "I guess I've been feeling overwhelmed. Work is stressful, and I feel like I'm not enough. Not enough at home, not enough at work." I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "You are enough, Emma. More than enough. We can handle this stress together. You don't have to go through it alone." She leaned into me, and for a moment, it felt like we were reconnecting. "I'm scared, John. Scared that I'm failing as a wife, as a mother." I held her tighter. "You're not failing. We're in this together, remember? For better or worse." We sat there in silence, the weight of our struggles hanging in the air. I knew we had a long way to go. But that night, holding Emma in my arms, I felt a glimmer of hope. We could find our way back to each other, but it would take time and effort, and I was willing to fight for us, for our family. The strain on our intimacy was real, but so was our love. And with patience and understanding, I believed we could overcome anything. Despite our efforts to reconnect, my suspicions grew. I couldn't ignore the changes in Emma's behavior. She was dressing differently, spending more time on her appearance, and there were more late nights at work. I began to wonder if there was someone else. The thought gnawed at me, a constant ache in the back of my mind. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I decided I needed answers. I reached for my phone and started reading articles about signs of infidelity, changes in behavior, new interests, secrecy with their phone, all signs that seemed uncomfortably familiar. My heart sank as I considered the possibility that Emma might be having an affair. The next day, I took a drastic step. While Emma was out, I installed an old surveillance camera under the eaves of our garage. I connected it to a hidden tape unit behind some paint cans. I needed to know if there was someone else. If my suspicions were correct, I had to have proof. 2 weeks went by with no signs of any unfamiliar vehicles. Emma's behavior, however, continued to be erratic. One evening, I noticed she left the house, but later claimed she had been home all day. Her absences were brief, seemingly too short for anything significant to occur, but the inconsistency bothered me. I decided to call her during the day to check in. "Hey, Emma, just wanted to see how your day's going," I said, trying to sound casual. "Oh, hey, John. It's fine. Just busy," she replied, her tone a bit too bright. "Where are you right now?" I asked, holding my breath. "At home, just taking a break," she said quickly. I frowned, knowing she had left the house earlier. "All right, just wanted to hear your voice. I'll see you tonight." When I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying. The surveillance tapes showed her leaving the house, but her absences were always brief. If she was meeting someone, they had to be incredibly quick encounters, or maybe she was just running errands she didn't think worth mentioning. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to confront her again. "Emma, can we talk?" I asked, my voice tense. She looked up from her book, her eyes wary. "Sure, John. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I've noticed you've been leaving the house more often, and you're not always honest about where you've been. I need to know if there's someone else." Emma's eyes widened in shock. "What? John? No, there's no one else. Why would you even think that? Your behavior has changed so much, Emma. You're distant, critical, and it feels like you're avoiding me. I can't help but wonder if there's someone else," I said, my voice breaking. Emma put down her book and reached for my hand. "John, I promise you, there's no one else. I've been under a lot of stress, and I've been going out for walks to clear my head. I didn't want to worry you, so I didn't mention it, but I'm not having an affair. I love you." I wanted to believe her, but the doubt lingered. "Why didn't you just tell me? I've been going crazy thinking the worst." She squeezed my hand, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry, John. I didn't realize how much it was affecting you. I'll try to be more open. Please, trust me." I nodded, trying to push the doubts away. "All right, Emma. I'll try. But we need to work on this together. I miss you." As I held her in my arms, the unthinkable suspicion still loomed over me. Emma's words were reassuring, but my trust had been shaken. Only time would tell if our love could withstand the storm that threatened to tear us apart. Our 12th anniversary was approaching, and I saw it as a chance to reignite the spark between us. "Let's do something special for our anniversary," I suggested one evening as we sat at the dinner table. "Maybe dinner and dancing. We haven't done that in ages." Emma looked up from her plate, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Dinner and dancing. That sounds nice, John." I smiled, relieved that she seemed open to the idea. "Great. I'll make the reservations. How about Plato's Place? You love that restaurant." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. "That sounds perfect." The night of our anniversary, I arranged for Lily to stay with my parents. Emma and I got dressed up, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. As we walked into Plato's Place, the familiar atmosphere and warm lighting made me nostalgic for the early days of our relationship. We were seated at a cozy table in the corner, and I ordered a bottle of Emma's favorite wine. As the evening progressed, the conversation flowed more easily than it had in a long time. We laughed, reminisced about old times, and for a moment, it felt like we were back to being the couple we used to be. After dinner, I suggested we go to a new club, but Emma wanted to revisit our old favorite spot. "Let's go to the Groove," she said, her eyes shining. I miss that place. The Groove was a small, intimate club with dim lighting and a dance floor that catered to an older crowd. It had always been our go-to place for dancing. As we walked in, I felt a rush of memories. We found a secluded table, ordered a couple of drinks, and then made our way to the dance floor. Dancing had always been one of the things that brought us together. As we moved to the music, it felt like we were reconnecting. The rhythm, the closeness, the shared smiles, it was everything I had hoped for. But after nearly an hour, we were both tired and decided to take a break. "Let's sit down for a bit," I said, leading Emma back to our table. "Sure, just let me freshen up," she replied, taking a sip of her wine before heading towards the restroom. As I watched her walk away, I noticed a man sitting alone at a corner table. He was strikingly handsome, and his gaze was fixed on Emma. A pang of unease shot through me. Was he watching her? I shook off the feeling, trying to focus on the positive. But when Emma returned, she seemed different, more distant, her eyes flickering nervously. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to read her expression. "Yes, just needed a moment," she replied, sitting down. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the easy conversation from earlier now replaced by an uncomfortable tension. I noticed the man from the corner table still watching us, and it made me uneasy. "Who's that guy over there?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Emma looked in the direction I was indicating and then quickly looked away. "I don't know, John." "Why?" "He seems to be staring at you," I said, my voice betraying my concern. Emma sighed. "John, you're being paranoid. Let's not ruin the evening." Just then, the man approached our table, bypassing me entirely. He looked directly at Emma. "Would you like to dance?" he asked, his tone confident. "No thanks," I interjected sharply, feeling my blood boil. "I was talking to the lady," he retorted with a smirk. "Yeah, well, the lady is my wife, and I decide who she dances with," I snapped back, my anger rising. "Darren, you're being rude," Emma said gently, trying to diffuse the situation. "Rude? Do you even know this guy?" I demanded. Emma hesitated. "No, John, I don't know him." "Then why did you exchange glances with him earlier?" I pressed, feeling the tension mount. "I didn't, John. You're imagining things," she replied, her tone strained. The man interrupted. "Look, I just wanted to dance. No need to get all worked up." "Do you mind?" I said, turning to face him. "I'm talking to my wife, and I don't need your input." "John, please. You're overreacting," Emma said, her voice edged with impatience. "Maybe I am, but I don't like the way this guy is acting," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Emma, if you dance with him, I'll be gone. I can't stand here and watch this." Emma looked at me, her eyes filled with frustration and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "Fine, John. If that's how you feel, maybe it's best if you leave." I stared at her, stunned. "Emma, it's our anniversary. I wanted to spend it with you." "I know, but you're making a scene," she replied, her voice softer now. "Let's talk about this later." "All right, but if you dance with him, you can find your own way home," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. Emma hesitated for a moment, then turned to the man. "Let's dance," she said, taking his hand. I watched them walk to the dance floor, my heart breaking. I couldn't stay and watch. I grabbed my coat and left the club, the sound of the music fading as I walked away. By the time my phone rang, I was several blocks away. It was Emma. "Where are you?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "I'm heading home to pack a bag," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean, pack a bag? Where are you going?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. "I don't know yet, but I need to get away from you," I said, the pain evident in my words. "I've reached my limit, Emma. John, please. It was just one dance. Are you really going to throw away 12 years of marriage over this?" she pleaded. "It's not just about the dance, Emma. Why would you want to stay married to someone you don't love or respect?" I said, my voice breaking. "I haven't caught you in the act, but I strongly suspect you're cheating on me." There was a long pause before she responded. "I'm sorry, John. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. Please, come back and pick me up. We can talk about it." "No, Emma. Like I said, I've had enough. If you're not having an affair, you're certainly doing a great impression of it," I replied firmly. "I'm pulling into our driveway now. By the time you get home, I'll be gone. John, please, believe me, I'm not having an affair. I'll grab a cab and come home. We need to talk this out," she begged. I hung up the phone, my heart heavy. When I arrived home, I swiftly packed a bag and left the house. As I drove down the block, I parked and waited, curiosity gnawing at me. 15 minutes later, a yellow cab pulled into the driveway, and Emma hurriedly exited and darted into the house. Satisfied that she hadn't returned with the man from the club, I drove to a motel. Almost immediately, my phone began to ring again. I switched it off. Though I lacked concrete evidence of infidelity, my suspicions remained strong. The evening had revealed the cracks in our marriage, and I couldn't ignore them any longer. That night, after driving to a motel, I turned off my phone and tried to get some sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. My mind was racing, replaying the events of the evening over and over again. I couldn't shake the image of Emma in that man's arms. My heart ached with the betrayal I felt, even though I didn't have concrete proof of an affair. The next morning, I called my office to inform them I'd be taking a few days off. My secretary, Joan, sounded concerned. "Is everything all right, John?" she asked. "I'm dealing with some personal issues, Joan. Just hold down the fort for me," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course, John. Take care," she said gently. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the motel bed, feeling lost. I knew I had to find some clarity. I decided to visit a private investigator I'd found in the Yellow Pages. If Emma was being unfaithful, I needed to know for sure. When I arrived at the investigator's office, a middle-aged man with a kind but professional demeanor greeted me. "Mr. Barnes, how can I help you today?" he asked. "I suspect my wife is having an affair, but I don't have any proof," I said, my voice heavy with emotion. "I need you to find out the truth." He nodded, handing me a form to fill out. "We'll conduct a thorough investigation. It'll take a couple of weeks. Are you prepared for what we might find?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I need to know." The following days were a blur. I stayed at the motel, avoiding calls from Emma. I needed space, time to think without her influence. Each day, I checked in with the investigator, but there was no news. One afternoon, my neighbor Andrea called. "John, I've been talking to Emma. She's a wreck. She said you won't speak to her. What's going on?" "Andrea, I don't want to drag you into this," I said, sighing. "John, we're friends. If you need to talk, I'm here," she insisted. I took a deep breath. "I think Emma might be cheating on me. I saw her dancing with another man on our anniversary. She's been distant for months." "John, I know Emma. She wouldn't cheat on you," Maybe there's another explanation, Andrea said softly. I hope you're right, Andrea. But I need to be sure, I replied, my voice breaking. The 2 weeks felt like an eternity. Finally, the investigator called me to his office. I sat down, my stomach in knots as he slid a manila envelope across the desk. You can skip through the mundane details, he said. Just head to the bottom of page 5. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and flipped to the designated page. After conducting a thorough investigation, this office has found no evidence to support the client's suspicions of infidelity on the part of his spouse, it read. Relief washed over me, but it was mixed with guilt. I doubted Emma, and it had nearly torn us apart. I thanked the investigator and headed back to the motel to gather my things. When I arrived at the house, Emma was waiting for me, her eyes red from crying. John, she said, her voice trembling. Please, can we talk? I nodded, stepping inside. We sat down on the couch, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words. I'm sorry, I began. I let my suspicions get the better of me. I hired a private investigator, and he found nothing. No affair. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I never cheated on you, John. I love you. I know I've been distant, and I'm sorry. I've been under so much stress, and I didn't handle it well. But I never betrayed you. I know, I said, taking her hand. I'm sorry for doubting you. I let my fears take over. Can we start over? Can we fix this? Emma nodded, squeezing my hand. Yes, John. I want to fix this. I want us to be happy again. We spent the next few hours talking, really talking, for the first time in months. We shared our fears, our frustrations, and our hopes for the future. It was a painful conversation, but it was also healing. That night, as we lay in bed, Emma curled up next to me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. Our road to recovery wouldn't be easy, but we were committed to it. We had faced the worst and come out stronger on the other side. In the weeks that followed, we worked on rebuilding our trust and connection. We went to couples therapy, where we learned to communicate better and understand each other's needs. Slowly but surely, the distance between us began to close, and the love we had once shared started to blossom again. The separation had been a wake-up call for both of us. It forced us to confront our issues and make the necessary changes to save our marriage. And in the end, it made us stronger, reminding us of the deep love and commitment that had brought us together in the first place. One afternoon, Emma and I decided to take a walk in the park. It was a sunny day, and the fresh air felt like a balm for our strained souls. As we walked hand in hand, I sensed she had something on her mind. John, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I stopped and looked at her, my heart pounding. What is it, Emma? She took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears. I've been keeping something from you, and it's time I come clean. I owe you that much. We found a bench and sat down. I held her hand, bracing myself for whatever she was about to reveal. Do you remember when we were having those problems a couple of years ago? She began, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Yes, I remember. Emma looked away, gathering her thoughts. I met someone during that time. His name was Louis. It was never physical, but it was an emotional affair. I didn't realize how vulnerable I was until it happened. I felt a jolt of shock, but forced myself to stay calm. Tell me everything, Emma. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. It started innocently enough. I met him at a grocery store. We chatted while picking out produce, and he gave me his number. I didn't intend to call him, but I felt so lonely and disconnected from you. One day I did. Emma paused, looking at me, searching for understanding. I squeezed her hand, urging her to continue. We met for lunch a few times. He made me feel alive, appreciated in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. We talked about everything, our lives, our dreams, our fears, but I realized I was crossing a line. I knew it was wrong, But I felt so lost, John. My heart ached hearing her confession. I struggled to process the emotions swirling inside me. Betrayal, sadness, but also a deep sense of empathy. What happened then? One day, during our third lunch, he suggested we go back to his place. That's when it hit me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't betray you and our marriage. I told him we couldn't see each other anymore and walked away. Emma wiped her tears, her voice steadying. I came home that night and saw you playing with Lily. I realized what I was risking, and it terrified me. I decided then to put all my efforts into our marriage, to fix what was broken between us. I took a deep breath, trying to absorb her words. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I was ashamed, John. I didn't want to hurt you more than I already had. And I was scared you'd leave me if you knew. But I see now that honesty is the only way we can truly heal and move forward. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I appreciate your honesty, Emma. It's not easy to hear, but it makes me understand what you were going through. We both made mistakes, and we need to forgive each other to move on. She looked at me, hope shining in her eyes. Can we do that, John? Can we forgive each other and start anew? I pulled her into an embrace, feeling her warmth against me. Yes, Emma, we can. We have to. For us, for Lily. We'll get through this together. As we held each other, I felt a sense of relief. Emma's confession, painful as it was, brought us a step closer to healing. We had faced the worst and come out stronger on the other side. Our love, tested by trials, was now grounded in a deeper understanding and commitment. That night, as we lay in bed, Emma snuggled close to me. Thank you for listening, John. For giving us a chance. I kissed her forehead, feeling a renewed sense of hope. We're in this together, Emma. Always. In the weeks that followed, we continued to rebuild our trust and connection. We attended therapy sessions, communicated openly, and made time for each other. Slowly, the wounds began to heal, and our love grew stronger. Emma's confession had been a turning point. It reminded us of the importance of honesty and vulnerability in a marriage. We had come a long way, and there was still a journey ahead, but we were ready to face it together, hand in hand, with a renewed sense of love and commitment.